On today's episode of the Ag Irrigation Collective, we're going to take a look at this week's drought summary, and it is effective on July 10th of 2025. Stick around. Hi, I'm Wes Schaefer, your host with the Ag Irrigation Collective. Sure do appreciate you stopping by today to take a look at this week's drought summary. I know I've been a little spotty on how frequently I've been publishing a podcast. It's been kind of a busy spring and into summer here as we've been creeping along. Everything in the irrigation business has been crazy. Water's starting to dry up in our area, and where that is I live in central southern Utah region, and I know that there's been some flooding across the United States in recent weeks, but there's also some droughts that we're taking a look at. And this drought summary that I'm looking at is on the droughtmonitor.unl.edu, and I'll put a link to this drought monitor. You can just Google up also U.S. Drought Monitor. It's a pretty cool website to look through. They've got a map that is relatively interactive, and it says it's released. This one I'm looking at was released July 10th, which is yesterday from this recording, 2025, and the data valid is from July 8th of 2025. So it's recent to this recording anyway. If you're listening to this a year from now, well, then you're looking back at some history. So we appreciate joining us regardless of when it might be. It's looking like also here that drought coverage and intensity it continued its decline throughout the Great Plains since the spring, with additional heavy rainfall during the first week of July. So that's been pretty helpful. Despite the extremely heavy rainfall and flash flooding in the past week, long-term drought dating back multiple years remains across south central Texas. So even with all that heavy rainfall, it wasn't necessarily. And of course, those big flooding and heavy rainfall scenarios, that's not a fix-all. It's actually very detrimental. Of course, as we've seen, there were several deaths come out of that deal, and it actually was very detrimental to the area and quite honestly, probably the whole Great Plains area. Improving drought conditions were made in parts of New Mexico, southwestern Colorado, and Arizona, while drought expanded and intensified across the Pacific Northwest and northern Intermountain West. Much of the Corn Belt and Midwest remains drought-free. That's good news if they can keep that corn growing. Recently here, about a month ago, I was in Iowa, and it's funny. Of course, the gravel roads that I was traveling down were plenty dusty. It hadn't rained recently when I was there, but the corn was looking healthy, and everything was looking pretty nice. So it looked pretty cool, actually, seeing all that corn. It was probably, when I was there, it was roughly on average about knee-high at the time. There was some that was a little taller, but in general, it was knee-high. A continued lack of adequate precipitation led to a worsening drought for northern Illinois, however. Following another week of summertime thunderstorms with heavy rainfall, drought ended for most of the central to southwestern Florida peninsula. Nearly all of the east, Ohio, and Tennessee valleys and lower Mississippi Valley are drought-free. The 7-day temperatures, which would be July 1st through the 7th, they averaged 2 to 4 degrees above normal across the Pacific Northwest and the northern Great Plains, Midwest, and New England. Cooler than normal temperatures were limited to the southern Great Plains and portions of the Southwest. Parts of the northwestern Alaska and Yukon River Valley are designated with short-term drought. While drought of varying intensity continues for Hawaii, although Puerto Rico currently remains drought-free, short-term precipitation deficits have increased in that region. So a little bit more write-up on the Northeast in specific goes into nearly all of the Northeast remains drought-free, with only a couple of small long-term drought areas designated across the northeastern Maryland and southeastern Massachusetts. Increasing 30 to 60-day precipitation deficits along with above-normal temperatures the past 2 weeks supported the expansion of abnormal dryness across eastern Massachusetts and southeastern New Hampshire. So you get up into that New England region in the northeast, and that's kind of the report there. In the southeast, the continuation of summertime convection and heavy rainfall, which is 2 to 4 inches locally, led to a widespread one-category improvement to much of the central to southwestern Florida peninsula. However, 180-day precipitation deficits and lower 28-day average stream flows support a continuation of long-term drought for small parts of central Florida and along the Gulf Coast of Florida. For the Atlantic coastal side of Florida Peninsula, which is on the east side, to the south of Lake Okeechobee, 30-day precipitation is averaged below normal and varying levels of drought persists. A few small abnormal dryness areas were added close to Charlotte, North Carolina, and also southeastern Alabama due to increasing 30-day precipitation deficits. Heavy precipitation associated with the remnants of a tropical storm Chantal occurred across drought-free areas of North Carolina. As we move into the south, a broad 1 to 2 category improvement was made this past week to much of the ongoing long-term drought areas of Texas, along with parts of New Mexico. The heaviest precipitation, which was 5 to 10 inches or more, occurred across the Edwards Plateau and south-central portions of Texas. According to measurements from July 1st through the 7th, precipitation amounts ranged from 12 to 18 inches in eastern Burnett and western Williamson counties of Texas. Although 1 to 2 category improvements were made, a long-term drought dating back multiple years with low groundwater and reservoir levels continue. Therefore, an area of long-term drought was maintained. The Edwards Aquifer Authority's long-term observation wells at Medina and Uvalde counties remain in extreme to exceptional drought levels. Elsewhere across the southeastern Great Plains and lower Mississippi Valley, no short-term or long-term drought is designated. So there's kind of some mixed reviews there, kind of some mixed news, depending upon, of course, the areas you're at and what counties that they're measuring in and different things like that. So as we creep into the Midwest, increasing 30 to 60-day precipitation deficits, worsening soil moisture and pasture conditions, and crop stress support a Category 1 degradation for much of northern Illinois. Above normal temperatures to start July has also led to higher evapotranspiration rates and water demand. Minor degradations were made to parts of Indiana, western Ohio, northeastern Kentucky, and northwestern Missouri. Where short-term precipitation deficits have increased, heavier precipitation this past week led to a reduction in the abnormal dryness in eastern lower Michigan. But moderate drought was added to western parts of lower Michigan, and recent heavy precipitation exceeding 2 inches led to a 1 category improvement for parts of western Iowa. Significant rainfall, which would be 1.5 to 2 inches, supported a 1 category improvement to parts of eastern Iowa, Wisconsin, and northern Minnesota. Okay, High Plains, we're on to you guys now. Another round of heavy rainfall, which is 1 to 2 inches locally, supported a 1 category improvement to parts of the northern and central Great Plains, and April through early July is a wet time of year, and 90-day precipitation, which would be valid April 9th through July 7th, averaged more than 150% of normal for much of the Dakotas, Nebraska, eastern Colorado, and eastern Wyoming. Conversely to that, moderate drought across northeastern North Dakota was expanded westward due to another dry week and above normal temperatures. This is supported by a 30 to 60-day SPI along with soil moisture indicators. Eastern Kansas has missed out on any heavy rainfall recently and has abnormal dryness that added to part of the state. Although precipitation was not that heavy across southwestern Colorado, enough precipitation along with the support of SPIs at multiple timescales blends warranted small 1 category improvement. So they're seeing a slight improvement in that region across that southwestern Colorado. And in the west, based on rapidly declining soil moisture and a low 28-day average stream flow, additional degradations were warranted this week for the Pacific Northwest, with an expanding coverage of moderate to severe drought across Oregon and Washington. Farther to the east, extreme drought was expanded to include more of northern Idaho. Parts of Utah also had a few areas with degradation based on a 28-day stream flow. Soil moisture and high evaporative demand recently. A drier end to the wet season, 60 to 90-day, and low soil moisture supported an expansion of abnormal dryness across northern to central California. Following recent beneficial precipitation along with timely wetness back in the late spring, improvements were warranted for parts of northern central and eastern Montana. Drought intensity remained nearly steady for the desert southwest, although locally heavier monsoon showers led to a small reduction in extreme drought for eastern and southern Arizona. So, of course, all of these different regions, ranging clear from the northeast, southeast, south, Midwest, High Plains, and the west, it is kind of a mixed bag on what we're seeing there, but in large part, we do have some real miserable drought conditions in a lot of areas, and then there's a few areas specifically through the Midwest there that they're experiencing no degradation on their drought conditions, which is good regionally. So we'll just kind of keep monitoring this. I like to take a look at this U.S. drought monitor when I've got a time to sit down and take a look at it, and it does affect all of us in the agricultural business, not only agricultural irrigation, which is what this podcast is geared toward, but it does, of course, affect those guys that are essentially dryland farmers, and they do rely upon that precipitation and those lack of drought conditions that we want to see. And that balance between too much water and not enough water is a very important thing. So anyway, that's going to kind of wrap up today's podcast. Just a little report on the U.S. Drought Monitor for the month here, starting into July of 2025. And anyway, you guys shoot me an email or a phone call. If you have my cell phone number, I'm not going to give it out, but if you already have it, give me a call and we can visit about what you want to hear on a podcast. And hope some of this is at least a little bit important and valuable information to you as you listen to it. We're going to get into some more stuff this fall as we get rolling, and I hope to kick back to a weekly podcast once things slow down a little bit and we find some more time. So anyway, sure appreciate you stopping by and with us today. Be profitable, my friends. We'll catch you on down the road.